Every year, the city of Chico and the surrounding area are subject to some sort of flooding. Flooding can have serious consequences, including damage to property, destruction of crops, loss of livestock, and deterioration of health conditions. While there are technologies to prepare and combat this oversaturation, some are more effective than others. Bioswales are ditches filled with vegetation that filter and transport rainwater. Bioswales are similar to drainage ditches, however different because bioswales are designed to maximize the time water spends in the swale, which aids the trapping of pollutants and silt. Bioswales, also known as grass swales, vegetated swales, or filtered strips, are implemented to combat impervious surfaces. They are often linear and are ditches littered with vegetation. Bioswales are commonly applied in areas with substantial pollutants. There are 4 common objectives behind bioswales, all of which fall under stormwater management. These 4 objectives include collection, conveyance, filtration, and infiltration, all of which treat water quality and reduce or delay volumes of runoff.
Infiltration is the movement of water into the soil layer, whereas filtration is a process or action of filtering something. The rate of infiltration is the speed at which water moves through the soil, which helps determine whether or not the soil particles will become oversaturated. Oversaturation is when water molecules fill the empty spaces between soil molecules, therefore reducing the strength between such particles, making the soil weak. Oversaturation of soils may lead to faster rates of erosion and weathering, increases the risk of collapsing, therefore creating sinkholes, and are simply too wet to grow crops on. Surface runoff is the water that came from rain, snowmelt, or other sources that flows over the land surface. Runoff is a major factor to infiltration and oversaturation of soils.
Bioswales become effective when water is precipitated and then collected within the trench, in which over time more and more water accumulates. As water collects in greater amounts, it begins to puddle and even flow. Bioswales then help direct the flow of this water with the usage of vegetation, trenches, and slopes, therefore preventing it from collecting alongside curbs and creating puddles. One of the biggest aspects that will determine whether to implement a bioswale is the natural slope or topography. The greater the decline, the better, because slope naturally conveys water through the system, a factor known as hydraulic gradient. The gradient aids in avoiding overflow and flooding of the system itself. Direction or movement or flow is dependent on the shape of the ditch. Oval and longitudinal are 2 common shapes used. Plants are important for aesthetics, slowing the flow of runoff and mitigating pollution. Some examples of vegetation found in a bioswale here on campus include meadow sage, orange and blue sedge, coastal redwood, and a few native flowers. Rocks located along the sides and the bottom of the ditch also aid in slowing the flow of runoff, toxin pickup, and reducing the turbidity or cloudiness of water due to sediments.
There are many benefits to implementing a bioswale. The first one has to do with water. Bioswales are often used to improve urban water systems by being designed to buffer rainwater and allow for infiltration. Also, bioswales minimizes overflow and potential flooding, prevents drying out of soils and water tables, improves overall water quality, and can even work as drainage systems during times of groundwater flooding.
Photosynthesis, completed by plants and vegetation, add to air quality by taking in carbon dioxide and emitting oxygen, as many of you already know. The increased presence of vegetation and plants that complete this process greatly increases the emission of oxygen and therefore gives us cleaner air. Because bioswales can be implemented anywhere across the globe, they can be home to an array of diverse plants and plant species. The majority of the time, the vegetation utilized is drought-friendly to correlate with sustainable efforts of the system, but trees, flowers, shrubs, and grasses are just a few of the many plant options. Also, bioswales can make a gray, drab area be transformed into a thriving green space. Benefits from an increase in overall biodiversity increases the bettering of natural ecosystem functions, such as cycling of nutrients and energy between trophic areas, as well as increased water and air quality.